video generator. I wanted to show you a little bit of AI, some of the new generating tools that we have. So write down anything you observe in the AI generated images. Oh, I need to go back and make sure I'm sharing my sound. Sorry. I know I did not do that when I shared.
And I just turned on the recording so that our folks who need to go back and take a look at it again can do that.
Thank you. John Dewey said, if we teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow. Keep this in mind as you walk through an AI-generated image of the classroom in the 1930s and a classroom in the 2020s post-COVID. Notice the similarities and the differences between the two classrooms. What do you notice in the AI-generated image of the classroom from the 1930s? What do you notice in the AI-generated image of a classroom from the 2020s post-COVID? Pause now to finalize any thoughts you have about what you saw in the two different images generated using Whisk AI in Google Labs. We'll share out in about 1 minute. Okay, so feel free to put in the chat anything that you saw that were similarities between the two classrooms. Similarities between the two classrooms. Good. I'm just going to say a couple of things for those of you who might be on devices where you can't see the chat. We've got that they're very teacher-centered, teachers at the front teaching, students are in rows, they're in individual desk, teacher front, students facing towards scholars, lecture style setup. Both were giving direct instructions from the board. All right, so now I'm going to ask you to give me some differences that you might have seen in the two classrooms. There were digital devices in the second classroom, screens in the second classroom. They were in pairs in the second classroom, more diversity in the second classroom, technology, collaboration, tech, less structured seating, would you say for students had their things with them in their book bags? Good. Wait time is so hard when you're virtual. If you had to give me a yes or a no answer, would you say that things had changed to your expectations with a century? Yes or no? Would things have changed to what you expected for a century?
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand that. Can you rephrase that question?
Comparing education from the 1920s to the 2020s.
Oh, okay, got it.
Would you say that changes are what you would expect in education for a century?
Thank you. I understand that. Sorry.
Yeah. Getting some yeses, some nos. All right. So in our next part, we're going to look a little toward what we've been doing more in North Carolina, specifically in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County Schools, looking at what we've been doing to help get future ready. So taking a look at that.
We've already been doing some hard work in our district aligning North Carolina's portrait of a graduate. In Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools, our vision for learning and teaching is clear: to prepare students today for a changing tomorrow. Take a look at this next AI-generated image. It shows a future-ready activity in a classroom. What similarities and differences do you see between this one and the classroom from the 2020s post-COVID? What do you notice?
So I'm going to pause on this one before it goes to the end. Go ahead and put in the chat things that you notice here that are different from the 2020s post-COVID. Collaboration, more student-led, groups, group work, more collaboration, more diversity. Teacher moving around, students working in group, hands-on activity in the middle of the group. Assumption is that the teacher's facilitating. Collaboration. Teams, good. So when we look at what we're moving toward in our district, this is definitely what all of us would like to be doing more in our classroom. Sometimes we achieve it, sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's about what we're able to do with our capacity on even any given day, whether it's us or our students, right? But it's definitely what we are moving toward and what we're doing. As I said before, I did create this using Google Apps Wisp and Google Workspace Apps Video, which you pretty much see anytime you open up any Google.
John Dewey said if we teach
anything.
today's
Sorry, it's
students
going
as
to
we
try to
taught
play again. Let me
yesterday,
skip to the next slide. So what do you see changing in your students' lives due to AI? We know that we have made some changes because we know that our employers wanted some things different, and we know we needed to create some different things for the portrait of a graduate. But then AI kind of came into the forefront, and we didn't really change a lot where the portrait of a graduate was concerned. What do you see changing in your students' lives due to AI? Feel free to drop things into the chat. We've got a couple of loss of basic skills, some creativity, but also laziness, a lack of emphasis on process, more on results. Students need to learn to check information and resources before relying on the information they get from AI. Students are a lot more reticent to produce original thoughts in my secondary ELA class. Because whether we're putting it out there for kids or not yet, we know that kids are using AI, right? They find a way to do it whether we're giving it to them or not. I would say that that's the reason that a lot of us are here, is that we know we need to become a lot more skilled with it, whether we're allowed to introduce it in our class, right? A loss of the learner's mindset, lack of imagination. All right, so Richard Culata, who is the CEO of ISTE and ASDC, came up with a profile of an AI-ready graduate. He started thinking about this portrait of a graduate that pretty much every state across the United States has come up with. And he started thinking about the fact that since 2022, when ChatGPT hit the market and it became public for people to begin using, that AI has grown so quickly and infiltrated the public sector so quickly that we really have to look at things differently for our students. That it's not just about teaching students how to use AI, but it's a whole different skill set that we really need to give students in order for them to truly be ready to be a graduate. And he really presents it in a way that it's a fresh look, and it's really the way that it's just a good way to look at it, in my opinion. So I wanted to share it with you all.
As we focus our thinking about AI, I want to suggest that we need to consider a portrait profile of an AI-ready graduate. So what these are human skills that we need students to learn in order to be able to thrive and survive in an AI world. These are not skills about using AI. They're not how to use AI. They're not what AI is. These are human skills that we need to be better at doing with AI in order to thrive in this world. We need to know how to use AI to help us be better learners, to help us get unstuck when we're learning new things. We need to use AI to know how to synthesize information, how to change the level of the information to match our needs and our level of understanding. We need to know how to use AI as an ideator. Humans are really bad at brainstorming. It's not our fault. It's just how our brains were made. Our brains have context. They help us make better decisions because of all that life context. But that life context also makes it really hard for us to imagine things we've never experienced before. And so knowing how to use AI as a brainstorming partner is an incredibly powerful tool, a skill that we will need in order to be AI ready. And also being a storyteller, knowing how to use AI to share complex ideas and concepts that wins people's minds and hearts is a critical skill. If we aren't preparing our students to have these human skills in an AI world, we're not setting them up for success when they graduate.
So his argument is about teaching students how to have the human skills they need to work with AI. Not how to use AI, but how to enhance their human skills, not just relying on AI, which is a lot of what I think that we lose the mark on.
Of an AI ready.
So frustrating when I'm trying to get it to go forward to the next slide. All right. So why else are we concerned with it? So the first study came out in about 2024 that was really big and hit the market. Microsoft and LinkedIn got together and said 66% of employers said that they wouldn't hire somebody who didn't have any AI skill. 71% of employers said they were more likely to hire somebody who was less qualified for a job if they had AI skills than somebody who was more qualified. Then in 2025, the World Economic Forum hit their Future of Jobs reports and they put it out. 77% of employers said they plan to reskill and upskill their existing employees to work alongside AI. 62% said they were going to recruit talent to collaborate with AI. 69% said we're going to hire people to create AI tools who are specialists. This percentage of the workforce that these people were looking for all needed to be able to work alongside AI. If employers are looking for these people to have AI skills, we have to prepare our students to have this AI literacy and to have these AI skills, or they're not going to be employable when they leave us.
And so that word literacy keeps surfacing, right? It's not just about, can I go to ChatGPT and type something in, which is a lot of what our students do, right? It is about building the literacy. And so, as you can see, there's lots of studies, there's lots of research that is starting to come out around AI and how it is truly shifting the landscape of the world around us, how it's affecting the job market and our economic systems. And so back in April, there was a federal executive order regarding AI in education with a focus around not only ensuring our staff are AI literate, but that our students are AI literate as well. Following that, in September, there was a state level executive order by Governor Stein. It didn't focus primarily on education. It focused on North Carolinians as a whole. But it also focused on ensuring that we were using AI ethically and safely, and it's about building that literacy. And so in Winston, we have been on a journey for the last, it feels like forever for us to have gotten here, but we have developed some guidelines to act as guardrails for both staff and students. And so if you happen to watch the board meeting on October 28th, you'll see that it's gonna, they are adding it to our acceptable use policy. But we have some guidelines in place because we can't, AI literacy, it's here, like I said, unless Skynet happens, a Skynet situation, I don't see it going anywhere. And there's some pros, absolutely, but there are also some ethical considerations. There's lots of intensive work that has to go into making ourselves and our students AI literate. And so we developed our guidelines. They are guidelines, even though they're going to be linked within policy, and that comes from recommendation at the state level because the technology is changing so quickly. And then while we're doing this, we're also working and partnering with our technology department to decide which platforms. Right now for staff use, it's pretty wide open. Like staff can access almost any AI, especially our large language models on the network. But however, students cannot access anything, none of our large language models, unless they hotspot or do something. And we know kids are wicked smart, so they can do all kinds of things. But right now they're shut off on our network. We are working towards opening up things slowly for students with a goal of second semester, perhaps. We have some high schools that are beating down the door. Like I've gotten multiple emails from Reagan, from some of the staff there and some different places wanting us to begin opening platforms. And so our goal is to begin to do that this year once we have those guidelines finalized. To create those guidelines, like I said, we really leaned into our state resources because North Carolina truly is one of the front runners when it comes to Gen AI in education. Vera Cabrera is considered an expert in the field at this point when it comes to AI in education. And so North Carolina has recommendations regarding Gen AI. They're linked. They've been linked on your employee links. If you go to the district website, we've put them here as well. It is quite a lengthy document. It's like almost 60 some pages, closer to 70. But there's some really great information. And we use those as we were generating our guidelines, which are much shorter and concise. And so as we think about some of that stuff that the state has created, one of the things we pulled from there is their definition of AI literacy. And to be AI literate, it's not just about the skills and the doing, it's about the knowledge that goes with it so that you can critically understand, use, and evaluate whichever AI platform you choose to do that. And that we do that safely. We're not putting personally identifiable information in there, and that we're using it ethically. And so when we think about AI literacy, it's really like, when I think about at its core, it really is about knowing what AI is and what it's not, a basic understanding of how it works, which for me is I need all the help because I'm like, I have to put in, can you explain this like a third grader? Because sometimes I struggle with understanding some of those complex systems. And then what are the potential benefits and risk as we begin to use AI, both ourselves and even as we think about our students using it. And so when we start talking about AI and we start talking about the potential benefits or risk to using it, cheating is the number one thing we hear, which I get you loud and clear. Like that is a concern. Absolutely. I'm not negating that, but that's really just the tip of the iceberg when we start to examine what are the benefits and then what are maybe some of the pitfalls and things we really need to consider. So the idea of like artificial, like AI companions is on the rise. And we see a lot of younger students becoming emotionally dependent on AI companions, deep fakes, and the use of images or the likeness of individuals to create false images. The environmental impact, which is a very real thing if you looked at any of the research around the use of generative AI. And those are big concerns, right? But there's also some really great things that AI can do for us. When one of the things that I love is thinking about personalized learning and how do we meet the needs of all learners in the classroom? How do we address those barriers? And so AI can really help us generate some activities or some resources that help us to personalize learning and increase accessibility for all students, not just some of our, like our EL, our EC, but really thinking about some of those barriers that exist for every student in the classroom. And then for me, one of the things I lean into is the efficiency piece. Some of the stuff that some of the routine things that I just need help with, AI can be a great aid in that, so that I can free myself up to do some of the more creative thinking. And so there are absolutely things we need to consider, and risk and benefits as we begin to engage in the use of AI. And so it's already been brought up multiple times in the chat, but bias, right? Like, we know that AI is trained on data sets, and we know that there is bias that exists in some of those data sets. So when I ask it to give me a powerful business executive, it generates certain images. Or if I ask for certain other images, diversity isn't always as part of that because it's missing from the data set. Privacy concerns. I think this is one of the biggest things for me, is thinking about I taught middle school. And so some of these middle schoolers going out and just putting everything about themselves, all the stuff out there into the ether. And that is a very scary thing. And then also, that's been brought up in the chat multiple times, thinking critically about what AI produces through the lens of bias, but also hallucinations. Like, AI doesn't always produce correct things because everything on the internet is not real. And so anytime it produces things that are nonsensical or just not right, like AI image generators in the beginning would produce some really crazy things, like kids with like 7 fingers, or like an arm was missing. For me, it's even thinking about some of the research that I use AI to help me do some initial research to find articles for different topics. And it would give me names of articles that like didn't exist, or links that led you nowhere. And so helping to work through some of the pros and the cons as we think about it, because AI is not a magic bullet. It's not going to fix everything, all the things wrong in education. And so we need to use it critically. And that's why AI literacy is so important.
Oh, I know. My mother-in-law recently sent what she just thought was adorable. It was 5 or 6 police officers doing a synchronized dance to Cake by the Ocean. And I sent her a little text back on the side and said, "Oh, Grammy, please don't click on things like that on your Facebook page." I said, "Look at it again. The police officer in the center has an extra arm when he throws his arm up over his head." It was an AI generated image. And she goes, "Oh, I am just getting off Facebook." I could hear her saying it out loud. There's a lot of it out there. So we are going to move on to what Gen AI is. So this is a great little diagram that was produced for on AI for Education. And if you guys haven't seen the AI for Education site, it's a great site to go to and just set yourself a timer. Limit yourself when you're on there, because you can get sucked into a huge rabbit hole, but they have lots of great resources for you out there to learn from. But it can break it down in specific terms for you, but I'm going to explain it to you generally. So Gen AI is basically technology that generates new output for you, like new text, audio, images, video, or code. And it does it by basically being pre-trained on massive amounts of existing content, its data or experience, and then it mimics what it is pre-trained on to create something novel or new. For example, think of this as your most just brilliant kid that you've ever taught ever. And they've read every book, every essay, every novel. They've studied every picture. They've listened to every song, every podcast. And now that kid can basically write a new essay on a topic, or they can create a new picture of something that no one has ever created before, based on all that knowledge they have in their head. That's basically what Gen AI is. They're basing it on all that training, all that knowledge that they've taken in. It's not a search engine. It's not reproducing something it already has, that it's not spitting out like eidetic memory. It's creating something new. That's Gen AI. How it works simplified is that it takes in it's like a giant prediction machine. It takes, like when your phone is going to predict what kind of next words you're going to put out in a text, it does this on a massive scale. So it takes the entire public internet, as much as it can take in, and it's looking for every word, sentence, pattern, everything that it takes in. It doesn't think like a person, no matter how many times whatever program or app or chatbot that you're using says, wait a minute, I'm thinking. It's really not thinking, it's calculating. But it takes in this massive amount of data, and then it looks at the prompt that the user puts in, and then it calculates what most likely is going to come next. And then it simply strings together all those billions of patterns that it has, and it gives an output. And that's how Gen AI works. So I'm going to give you guys a demo. For this first demo, I want all of us to go to Gemini, and you can either click the link if you have the presentation, or I'll show you guys how to get there. An easy way to get there, if you don't have it, is you go to your Google App Launcher, or the waffle as people like to call it, and Gemini is the diamond that's here. And everybody should have access to Gemini. We are going to use this prompting slide. I'm going to split screen it so you can see both. We're going to use this prompting slide, and we're all, oops, there it goes. We're all going to copy, stop it. I'm just going to type it here because it's short. We're going to copy and paste or type it in there. Explain how generative AI works like I am a fifth grader. And I want everybody to enter the same thing because I want you guys to see that it truly generates something new. So we're going to enter it. And then I want you guys to compare what yours puts out to what mine puts out. I'm going to make mine larger so you can see it. Did yours start out telling you, imagine if you want to teach a robot how to draw a cat? Anybody else's start out exactly that way? Nope. Because even though we're telling it to do it as a fifth grader, it's going to do something novel or new for each one of us, right? Because it's generative AI, it's creating something new. I need to make my view smaller again, back down to 100% so that I can function on it. Other things we can do, we can then say, hey, I would like to add a video game reference to, I'm going to use Pac-Man because that's a video game that I'm going to know, to explain this. And so it's explaining it now like a super smart Pac-Man ghost. Super smart computer artist, writer, musician. Super smart friend who's a very creative artist or writer. Trainings like eating all the dots, predictions like chasing Pac-Man, generatings like creating a new maze. All right, so we want to give you guys a little time to play around. Another thing we have here is we've got some prompts. These prompts, I only have the first two that are like generative AI. The other ones are not really education related. They're just prompts for you to play with. We're going to drop these prompts in the chat, so that if you would like to play with some different prompts, you can. We're going to give you guys about 3 to 4 minutes just to play around with the prompts and with Gemini to see what you guys get as outputs with some of the different modifications as well. So I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes to give you guys some time to play, and then we'll see what you guys got for some output. If you have questions, please feel free to ask. All right, so what did you guys discover that was cool? Oh, I love it. It did. I have done a lot of things like with a thought partner with AI, and when we say that stops kids from doing critical thinking, and it stops kids from doing a lot of things. We just have to teach them how to use it differently, because it has pushed me, not it, I have pushed myself to different levels of thinking and made myself so tired some days trying to figure certain things out using AI to push me places when I don't have a thought partner, that I have exhausted myself to where I go home and my brain is just so tired. Jolt, grind, brew. Yep. That's awesome. And sometimes our brains are just tired and we need somebody else to do something for us. I love that. So I had Gemini create the prompts that you guys used. So are there any other questions you guys have about anything thus far that we've discussed? When do we teach them? When do we sit them down and teach them? So Montana, we don't have it specifically written in anywhere, and I do wonder at some time if it's going to come down the line, if it's going to be written into standards somewhere, and I don't have an answer for that. As somebody who taught language arts for a long time and social studies for a long time, I naturally see that it could go into both of those content areas. Obviously, it fits into anything that deals with digital literacy and into the CTE world, but it's not specifically in any of the content areas right now. I do think that it eventually will end up there. I just don't know how, education's always catching up. So I don't know how long it's going to take education to catch up to get there. I think that there are going to be some teachers that are just going to do it and they're going to work it into their curriculum and do it because they know it's what kids need and they know kids are going to be using it no matter what. And so they're just going to work it in and they're going to do it. I don't have an answer for you. Oh, as a society, what grade level?
That's a big one.
Oh, Ashley?
Yeah, I don't think so. What I would love to see is eventually that it's introduced at different times in each grade level, and that each grade level kind of builds. I don't want necessarily elementary kids out using AI because it's such a it's hard for them to understand that's not a human on the back end of that. But to begin introducing what it is and what it isn't, like my daughters, I have a third grader and I have a 4.5-year-old. She'll go into kindergarten next year. And so we've already had to talk about what is AI and what is, like, why do people create fake videos, or how do you know that's not real? We were just watching a video. They love funny animal videos, like that's their jam. And so me and my husband will save Instagram reels that are funny animal videos. And we had to point out the other day, Ellie's like, that's hilarious. And Kyle's like, yeah, but it's not real. So I would love to see eventually that we get to the point that we introduce it in small increments over time, so that when they do get older and can use generative AI, that they have the foundational conceptual understanding of what it is before they engage. As Shannon said, we're always playing catch up in public education. But as a middle school teacher, if I was doing a project and using it, day one for me would be introducing what it is, how to use it, and going over some of those foundational pieces. But yeah.
Well, and I know we don't have a lot of time to chit chat because we've got so much, but part of this is about meeting the needs of you all. And I mean, kids come into school in kindergarten already interacting with bots. They talk to Alexa, they talk to Siri.
Yeah.
They're already talking to AI, and AI is out there. And the state recognizes that, like when we are interacting and talking to Vera Cabrera, who Ashley has already pointed out is an expert in the field. She's our DPI leader in emerging technologies in the state. They do talk about introducing the idea of AI and doing some AI literacy with K2 children, not putting them on AI, but doing some AI literacy with those kids so that you can start teaching them and informing them even in K2, as young as K2. And there are suggested timelines and frames if you look at the state guidance and even in our guidelines of what's suggested to do across the board. We just don't have it in the curriculum. It's not mandated yet.
And Shannon, I think as teachers, for us to try and strike that balance of when we're working with our students to engage them in productive struggle and brainstorming and allow them to make the mistakes and going back and revising the work, and then truly going out and working with them alongside, like you said, AI to help us kind of continue to do that. So it's a give and take thing, as far in my opinion.
Can you turn the movie on? Hold on. Speaking of children,
Okay. So
mine
go ahead,
entered the
Ashley.
scene.
Go ahead.
If you hear little voices, just know their daddy had to go
ahead.
take care of something.
If you need to do that, I got this. Okay.
No, it's okay. Her sister can turn a movie on for her.
Okay.
But I will say, like, y'all have had some time to play. We're getting towards the end of this. A big piece of AI literacy is really about effective and responsible use. And I think that's what even I struggle with at times. Like, I've asked Shannon, I'm like, I used it to help me rewrite an email because I don't want to have like a snarky tone. Do I need to cite that? Like, what's the rules? And so, I mean, there's a lot to it. And so, when we think about using it effectively and responsibly, not only in our personal lives, because somebody talked about a trip to the moon, I had it plan out a trip to the Grand Canyon in a camper. So, like, my husband thinks we're getting a camper. But it's important to think about how to use it and what it is and what it isn't, because AI definitely has limitations. And so when we think about generative AI and what it is able to generate new content. It is not the same thing as Google, which is how a lot of our kids are using it as a direct substitute. It's based on probability, therefore it can make errors, which means teaching ourselves and students to go back and fact check because it's not infallible, right? It's based on an algorithm that processes data. It's not truly thinking regardless, which that's the whole thing with these AI companions. It just makes me very nervous. And then while it may, like some of the AI voices or the videos or it can mimic human expression and emotion, it is not human. It is not truly able to have emotions or empathy or feeling. And that is why the human aspect of this will always be critical. Our department leans in, if we're going to use AI, we lean into what we call the 80-20 rule. And so it's this idea that yes, AI can do some amazing things and generate some things and do some stuff, but that is not the end all be all. You cannot take a lesson plan that you generate via AI and just take it and use it the next day. There is still a human component to that, where I have to make sure there's no bias that shows up or that there isn't incorrect information and that it truly does meet the needs of my students. So we call that the 80-20 rule, that AI will do 80% of the work, but you still have an obligation and a responsibility to go back in and fact check and look over those pieces. And so while it's not human, we already introduced the idea that it's also not Google. And so a search engine, and Shannon's going to go into this a little bit more, a search engine isn't generating new content. It's searching what's already out there and giving you some results. AI is taking some of that data and then generating truly new content. So
you know that when you are searching, you're just putting in what you want to search for, the way we've done for years in Google. A weak prompt would be something like, hey, just create a lesson about this. As you are crafting your prompts and becoming better, you're going to learn that the more information you can give to a prompt, the more specific you can be without putting in PII, personally identifiable information, the better output you're going to give. You guys do have the tiny URL, and Sandy has dropped this in the chat several times, and we will send this out to you all after the presentation. You can click here to see the output for this prompt. I'm going to go ahead and go to this slide so that you can see this craft, and I'm going to actually go here so it'll make it a little bit bigger on the screen for you. Vera Cabero created this framework, and you can go to different sites and get different frameworks, but they all basically, I want it to stop there. They all basically have the same thing. Some type of context where you have the AI target your specific needs. You give it a role. The more targeted response you are, what you're teaching, the grade level, your audience. You don't tell it specifically who your students are, but you can tell it that you have multi-language learners. You can tell it that you have students with auditory processing problems. You can tell it that you're a CTE teacher. You can tell it that you have predominantly very active boys in your classroom. You don't tell it that you have Johnny who lives on Elmore Street, whose last name is Whitmore, who drives you crazy. You don't give it personally identifiable information, but you can give it general information such as students with auditory processing problem, or multilingual learners, or Spanish speaking students. You give it the format. Do you want a rap? Do you want an email? Do you want a lesson plan? Do you want a 30-minute lesson plan? Do you want a 90-minute lesson plan broken up into 3 different blocks? What is it that you want? Do you want student engagement with collaboration for your students? Do you want hands-on? Be specific. And then the task and the tone that you want. Are you comparing, explaining, brainstorming? Give it the desired tone. If you give it all of those things, then you're going to get a much better output from your prompt that you're putting in when you go in to give your prompt into your Chat GPT or whatever AI that you're using.
So
right. It's
we're running
4:59,
low on,
Ashley.
yeah, so we're running low on time, which always happens to us. And so what I will say is, when you think about generative AI, I know we all have mixed emotions, and that I have 2 daughters. So from a mother's lens, I get really concerned, right? As an educator, I can definitely see the benefits, absolutely. I also know that our hesitations are very real as well. And so a couple things to kind of consider is to start small. Pick a lane. What do I want to use it for? Like for me, it's always thinking about barriers to student learning, and how can I mitigate that? How can I empower students to, and how can I plan so that students can overcome that? And then pick a tool. If you haven't found your favorite tool yet, try them out, see which one works. Right now, I'm learning Claude. Like, it intimidated me in the beginning, and so I've been playing with it much more. And then just be curious. Think about what works, what doesn't work, what are the different prompts. There are lots of different things you can try in there. And then remember that while there are some really some big hurdles, some obstacles, some hesitations, that it can do some good, right? It can help us to plan and create some things for our students to meet their needs, and that your experience in those creations are going to be really important. And so this was very foundational, entry level. What is it? How does it work? Kind of thing. We have several more sessions coming up. They will all be virtual. and they dive a little deeper each time. And so the next one, we're going to get into prompting a little bit more. And some more hands-on. This one was a lot of information, but the next one's going to be a lot of hands-on. And then we start to really dive into some of the concerns that you all raised, like data privacy and bias, and over-reliance, both for ourselves and our students, and the environmental impact. So we're going to dive into some of these pieces a little bit more as we go. And then by the spring, looking at how we can use it to help us create some of those deeper learning experiences, so students have an opportunity to cultivate those skills from the Portrait of a Graduate. And so with that, I will say Sandy has been awesome in the background and has went ahead and she has confirmed everybody's attendance. So there's no need to grab a code and put that in Kickup. But what we do ask is for you to give us some feedback. And so we would love all the feedback. And we want honest feedback. We do say be kind or professional, but if there are things we can improve upon, please let us know. In the Kickup responses, we go through, it is a standing agenda item for our team every time to go in and think about how we can get better. And we do. We have several more of these. We want to make sure that that we get better each time. So we appreciate your time. You didn't have to spend your afternoon with us. And so we really do appreciate that. So we hope you all have a wonderful rest of the afternoon. So thank you all. You want to tell